Hey, everybody, what's going on? Jeff Rager, another episode of the Daily Ticket. This one for a Monday. The weekend went way too quick. It's the 18th of March. It's 2024. And before we get into it, I must say I'm sorry. I apologize. A lot of y'all absolutely hate the way I start Friday podcasts. I did a podcast on Friday. And it's Friday. I'm pumped up. I'm fired up. I don't have to do the podcast for a couple days. It's the weekend. Everybody's fired up. So I always say it's Friday. And I just extend it. I'm not going to do it again because you would not believe how many people messaged me, commented to me saying, hey, dude, you made me turn off the podcast. Like I was actually interested in what you had to say. We were talking about DJ Reader and Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and Chris Spielman getting extended. Also, Carlton Davis talked to the media, the new Lions cornerback. Nobody cared. I turned them all off because I extended my Friday in the open of the podcast. So I apologize. I'm sorry. I'll be better. I figured it might be annoying, and apparently it was. So it's done. Come back to the podcast, please. I won't do it ever again. I promise. Unless you give me permission to do it. Also, I like to remind you, before we get going, please rate, subscribe, review the Daily Ticket, follow wherever you get your podcast. Watch it on YouTube. I appreciate y'all. You're all awesome. Let's get on with it, shall we? Because there's many different ways we can go with this podcast. It was a very busy weekend. Michigan fired Jawan Howard. We'll get to that. Michigan State and Oakland University learn who they're playing in the NCAA Tournament. We'll get to that. But I must say what I'm most passionate about, what really is stuck in my craw, and it pisses me off, are the Red Wings. The Red Wings are embarrassing. They really are. In the last 9 games, they've lost 8 of them. They won on Saturday 4-1 against the Buffalo Sabres. And I thought to myself, holy shit, maybe they're turning it around. I know I was stupid. I know I was dumb. I allowed myself to think about the postseason in a first-round matchup of maybe against the Rangers or the Bruins or the Panthers. I put it on social media. Stoney, formerly of the morning show, the godfather of sports radio, works at the Ticket. He said I was having a knee-jerk reaction. I went on the radio after the win, and I said, hey, I really think that Patrick Kane goal from JT Compher is going to be one of those moments middle of the season that changes a team's momentum and gets you to a postseason. I really thought the Wings, after finally winning their first in 8 games after a 7-game skid, I thought they were turning it around. I put all my money that I had that they would beat Pittsburgh yesterday. Wings played a back-to-back. They had to travel to Pittsburgh after absolutely dominating the Buffalo Sabres. Pittsburgh had played 3 games in 4 nights, and so did Detroit. But Pittsburgh is about to fall out of the standings. They had just lost to the Rangers. It was like a last-ditch effort. Pittsburgh stinks. They're washed up. They're way too old. And I thought the Red Wings would go into the Steel City and kick the shit out of them. Man, was I wrong. Detroit got outshot in the first period 17-4. 17-4. They ended up losing the game 6-3. It wasn't even that close. They scored their 3rd goal on a 6-on-4 power play because they had to pull their netminder. Their netminder, by the way, Alex Lyon, who sure hasn't been as good as he was early on, and it's because you're overusing the guy and also pretty much hanging him out to dry as well. Like, the Red Wings got dominated yesterday against Pittsburgh, and that, by the way, was after the Islanders lost. 1 point behind you. You could have been 3 points up on them. That was after the Devils lost as well. Sunday, everything the Wings needed to happen to secure themselves a playoff spot or at least be on the right track to one happened. And then the Wings lay an egg in the Steel City. So I started thinking about this on Thursday after the Wings lost to Arizona. And I know you're going to think this is out of nowhere, and I know you're going to think this is harsh, and I know you're going to think maybe I'm overreacting, but I have actual data to back this up. Should the Red Wings fire Derek Lalonde? There's 14 games left in the season. You're 1 point up on the Islanders and the Capitals for that final wild card playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. The Wings have lost 8 of their last 9 hockey games. They get outscored by a large margin. They don't look like they want to be there most of the time. They forget how to play defense about 98% of the time. And yes, I know they're missing Dylan Larkin. He's a very good player. But you know what? He's not that good. He's not the greatest player ever to center in the NHL. He good. But is he really responsible for losing 8 of 9 hockey games and taking a 9-point lead over the playoff cut line like Detroit had and whittling it all the way down to like a 1-point lead? I mean, give me a break. I do wonder if the move needs to be made that Derek Lalonde needs to be shown the door. And it's nothing personal against Lalonde, and I really like him as a person, and I think he's a witty dude, and I really do think that he's a nice guy. But I don't care about any of that stuff, and no, neither should you. And here's the deal, guys. Before you think it's way too reactionary, and before you think, oh, shut up, Rieger, you're just on one of your hot takes, you fucking troll. I know you're thinking that. Before you think any of that stuff, can I explain to you? Can I give you some data? Can I make my case? And then if you don't buy it, then fine, you don't buy it. You can say whatever you want to me in the comment section. Be as mean as you want. But I do believe Derek Lalonde should be fired. So the NHL is like no other league. They fire their coaches all the time in season, and it's amazing that a lot of those teams end up making the postseason and do well in the postseason. This year alone, 7 coaches have been whacked in the NHL midseason. 6 of the teams are either in the playoffs right now or very close to making the playoffs. Like, I'll go down the list. Jay Woodcroft got fired after 12 games from Edmonton. Kenny Holland pulled the trigger on that one. Edmonton's not only going to make the playoffs, hell, they could win the Stanley Cup. Dean Evanson got fired from the Minnesota Wild. Wild are 5 points out of the playoffs. After 251 career games with the Wild, whacked, gone. Wild got a shot to make it to the second season. What about Craig Berube? He got fired after the St. Louis Blues lost to the Detroit Red Wings. Coached 382 games. Actually, as an interim coach, won a Stanley Cup with the Blues. 28 games in, St. Louis has saw enough, so they whacked them. Guess what? There's 6 points out of a playoff spot. Todd McClellan got fired from the Kings 48 games in. 338 games on the job. Look at the Kings now, top 3 team in the Pacific. Lindy Ruff just got fired from the Devils. 61 games in the season. Now, they've lost the last 2 or 3 games. The Devils are like, this guy's not good enough. We don't want to waste the season away. Let's give another guy a shot. DJ Smith got whacked from Ottawa. Ottawa sucks. They don't count, okay? Not every team is going to be able to count here. But the one I really want to focus is on Lane Lambert. Lane Lambert got fired from the Islanders after just 127 games with the team. 45 games into this year, he got whacked. They called Patrick Waugh up. Remember Patrick Waugh used to coach for Colorado? Remember Patrick Waugh gave up 7 goals in Game 7 against the Red Wings? Remember Patrick Waugh fought in the fight night at the Joe? Yeah, that Patrick Waugh. Nobody likes that guy. Anyway, Islanders called him up and said, hey, Patty, you want to coach? He's like, fuck yeah. Now he's the coach of the Islanders. 45 games into the season, takes over, and they're 1 point behind you. 1 point behind you. And I know what you're thinking. Well, it's not fair to fire a guy like Derek Lalonde after just, what, 2 seasons? Yes, it is. Lalonde has coached 150 games for the Detroit Red Wings. Lane Lambert coached 127 people. Last time I checked, that's 23 less games than Derek Lalonde. Hockey's a weird sport. You whack a guy and you say to yourself, okay, yeah, maybe this is our last chance. And sometimes it does work. And here's the deal. The veterans stink on this team right now. The Wings can't score to save their life right now. They got one guy that can put the biscuit in the basket. That's Lucas Raymond. All these big-time players, where are they? You went out and got JT Compher, and despite making that nice play on Saturday to find Patrick Kane for a goal, it was a go-ahead goal. He hasn't been all that impressive. Andrew Kopp, he's a veteran. He hasn't been all that impressive. Ole Mata, he's won a Stanley Cup. He hasn't been all that impressive. Patrick Kane, he's got one goal in the last 8 games, not all that impressive. Alex DeBrincat, he's not all that impressive. What I'm trying to say is you can't fire a team. You can't fire a team. So do you fire your coach? Do you fire your coach? And I think the answer is yes. It is time. It's not personal. It's business. Because if Steve Yzerman doesn't care about making the playoffs, and this isn't a shot, I don't think he cares. If he cared about making the playoffs, he would have made a move at the deadline. He decided not to. His prerogative. I'm fine with it. That's what he believes. He believes that there's some real talent in the minor league system. And maybe there is. The Grand Rapids Griffins are pretty good. But Yzerman said, nope, I am not making a move. I'm not willing to pay hefty prices to bring a proven player on this team for a playoff push. So maybe he doesn't care about making the playoffs. Maybe he's too consumed with his long-term plan. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm not ripping on him. It's disappointing. But that doesn't mean you're not consumed with it. This has been a great season, a magical season, because you haven't been to the playoffs since 2016. Don't let it slip away. Making the playoffs is important. If Yzerman doesn't care, I don't care. You should care because I care. I want to see second season hockey. You can't convince me it wouldn't help this team in the future, moving forward. Do you fire Derek Lalonde? The other thing you have to ask yourself is, is Lalonde really Scotty Bowman? Is he really a guy that's going to bring you a Stanley Cup? Do you believe that Derek Lalonde is one of the next hot, amazing coaches in this league that's going to win a ton? I don't think you can say the answer is yes. He's had his chance. Look at this team. They don't perform on most nights. You don't believe me? Go look at the stats of the last 9 games. They got 1 win, and again, they get severely outscored. People, this is your last chance. Don't let the season slip away. Fire the head coach, Derek Lalonde. And I know what your next question is. Well, who are you going to hire? Well, you could give the gig to Bob Boughner. He's the assistant coach of the Detroit Red Wings, but he is mostly responsible for defensive alignment. So you probably don't want to give the gig to him. You could give it to Alex Tanguay. He's responsible for the 10th best power play in the NHL. Maybe you give it to him. But there's a guy out there. Just like the Islanders went out and got Patrick Waugh, there's a guy out there that just happens to be really good friends with Steve Yzerman. At least I think they are. They used to play together and happens to be a pretty damn good fucking coach. What about Gerard Gallant? Gerard Gallant was the coach of the Las Vegas Golden Knights when they made it all the way to the Cup Final. It's their first year as a franchise. Gerard Gallant was the coach of the New York Rangers when they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Gerard Gallant is on record as of January saying he wants the coach in the NHL again. Give Gerard Gallant a call. He's got 14 games to make this right. Your schedule moving forward is very doable. It's very easy. You got to get rid of Derek Lalonde. I'm sorry. You do. And it's nothing personal, and I feel like a total jerk saying it. And I know you're going to say he hasn't been given enough time, and it's not his fault, but you can't fire the entire team, so you got to fire the coach. And like I mentioned, there's precedent here. I've already given you the 7 coaches that were fired this year. 6 of those teams are either in playoff contention or sniffing the playoffs. But believe it or not, when you fire your head coach, sometimes you win the Stanley Cup. There's data on that too. Mike Sullivan took over the Penguins job mid-season, won a cup. Dan Bilesma took over the Penguins job mid-season, won a cup. Craig Berube, I already talked to you about him. He got fired from the Blues, but guess what? He took over the Blues job mid-season, won a cup. And then there's my favorite, Daryl Sutter. Took over the Kings mid-season, made it to the playoffs as an 8th seed, and won a cup. I think it's time. In the most important part of the season, when you had a very cushy lead in the postseason standings, your team has no-showed pretty much for 3 straight weeks. Get rid of the coach. Get rid of the coach, bring in somebody else that is going to have a different philosophy, maybe a different system. Go to work. You will get Dylan Larkin back and say, you know what? This shit ain't good enough. We're going to make a change. And here's the deal, guys, by the way. Here's the deal. If you do make a coaching change, don't you think that you send everybody a message saying how you've been playing the last 9 games is truly unacceptable when the season is on the line? Fire your head coach. There's this cut that's going around of Derek Lalonde when he told Bally's, if I were to tell you that we'd be in a playoff spot with 15 games left to go, you'd be happy. Then he went on to say, we had like an 8% chance to make the playoffs. Essentially saying, why is everybody so frustrated and pissed off? Well, Derek, I would like to focus on a different stat. When you were 9 points up on the playoff cut line, you had an 85% chance to make the playoffs. And now it's pretty much all gone. And the Islanders and the Capitals are right on your tail. Hell, the Capitals went into Vancouver on Saturday night and somehow beat them. That's a good Vancouver team. That doesn't happen, but they want to make the postseason. Do you? If you do, the answer is easy. Fire Derek Lalonde. Not personal. It's business. Let me know what you think. Too reactionary for you? Let me know. In the meantime, I got a couple other things I want to cover very quickly. We're going to do comments tomorrow because I don't think we're going to have time today. But there were a lot of good comments from Friday's podcast about bringing DJ Reader in for the Detroit Lions. But something else I wanted to hit on. Oh, that's right. The brackets came out last night. It was St. Bracket Day, not St. Patrick's Day. You like that? I actually saw that somewhere and I stole it from somebody. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was on social media. Anyway, for all the people wondering if Michigan State was going to get in the tournament, you don't need to wonder. They finished 10 spots ahead of the cut line in the dance. There were so many upsets in the conference tournaments on Saturday night. Every Spartan was freaking out saying, oh my goodness, other teams are taking our spot. We're on the bubble now. Tom Izzo said he's never been more anxious during a tournament selection show. Well, they're a 9 seed. They're going to take on Mississippi State. That Mississippi State team, we can break it down later in the week, but they're a really good offensive rebounding team. They get to the line a ton, but they stink at free throws. And they play really good defense. And Michigan State, unfortunately, got the most dreaded game. The first game of the tournament. That's right. Nobody likes to play in the first game of the tournament. It's at 12:15 on Thursday. If you lose that game, nobody even remembers you were in the tournament. I remember one year Michigan State lost that game to NC State. Nobody even remembers that you're in the tournament unless you watch One Shining Moment after the national title game. And I think at the start of One Shining Moment, they showed the tip of the first game of the tournament, which in this tournament, it's going to be Mississippi State and Michigan State. So 12:15 on Thursday, the very first game of the tournament for Sparty and the Bulldogs. But Oakland University also got in for the first time in 12 years. And guess what? They're taking on Kentucky. It's Coach Campy versus Coach Calipari. They're really good friends, apparently. There's footage all over the internet of them talking to each other, them texting each other. And apparently, when Greg Campy's Oakland U team won the Horizon League tournament, Calipari immediately texted him, congratulations. I don't think they're going to be talking a lot this week, though. That's a winnable game for Oakland. They're a 14. Kentucky's a 3. That's a winnable game for Oakland. That would be massive. And they play at 7:10 on Thursday. They get prime time. Campy and Calipari, prime time on Thursday. God, I love the tournament. My favorite sporting event of the year. So Michigan State's in. They're a 9. They take on 8 seed Mississippi State. 12-15, first game of the tournament. And Campy's in. and Oakland. They're a 14 seed. They take on 3 seed Kentucky, 7:10 on Thursday. That's exciting. And then the last thing I wanted to hit on, Michigan fires Jawan Howard. I think we all knew this was coming when on Friday morning we all woke up to an Athletic article saying that Michigan hired an outside firm to look into the culture of Michigan basketball. As soon as I saw that title, I'm like, oh, Jawan's gone. And by the way, it's for the best. Jawan gave Michigan fans some good moments. He was a Franz Wagner 3 away from going to the Final Four. He won the Big Ten, won some tournament games, beat 2 seed Tennessee, beat a good LSU team as well with NBA talent on it. But this was the right move. And now Michigan fans should be excited. Because if you do this thing the right way, hopefully you get a coach that with the transfer portal and NIL and just the ability to recruit and coach, you're going to be right back playing meaningful games in March. Because I don't know about you, I watched conference tournaments all this weekend. They're awesome. Why wouldn't you want to be involved in that? So I'm glad Juwan's gone. You know me. I love the Fab Five. I love Juwan Howard, but it was time. That was the right move. And now who are they going to go get? Dusty May from FAU? What about Fred Hoiberg from Nebraska? Brian Dutcher from San Diego State. He's 64, living the dream, but he's coached at Michigan before. Like, we'll have time to talk about the candidates. I will have my list of candidates later this week. But Jawan was fired, and I think it was a great move by Ward Manuel. Now, I will say this. I don't think Jawan left Ward much of a choice. I don't think Ward wanted to fire Jawan. But at the end of the day, it's best for the program, and it makes me very happy. Because now Michigan can start over and hopefully get back to actually winning basketball games. 8-24 was absolutely outrageously pathetic. So that's it for the Daily Ticket. We'll do the comments tomorrow, people. I've gone too long, but let me know what you think on the comment section or hit me up on Twitter at Rieger1984 if you be so kind. Am I overreacting? Should Derek Lalonde be fired like right now? Go get Gerard Gallant. Give him 14 games. You're 1 point up in the playoffs. Do not let this thing slip away. Because, again, even if Yzerman doesn't care about making the playoffs, he cares more about the long-term plan. I care about making the playoffs, and so should you if you're a Wings fan. Let me know what you think. All right. That's going to do it for the Daily Ticket, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow on a Tuesday. Have a great day. Bye-bye.